Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. To live in a world of your own imagination and to be in complete denial of reality is one thing. But then to stand in front of Parliament and lie, outright lie to the faces of all those present is something else. And yet that is what Lorna Slater has done today. She has been questioned, and she's basically stood up, looked at everyone, opened her big Canadian gob and lied and blamed everything that's gone wrong in her life on Westminster, even though it's got nothing to do with Westminster. Westminster made none of the decisions. All of them were Lorna Slater. And yet she feels necessary to make sure people know it wasn't her. Bit late, we all know, of course. It absolutely bloody well was. Anyway, we'll take a look at this, see what's going on, see why Lorna Slater felt that today in Holyrood was the day to tell the biggest bunch of porky pies that woman has ever told. Here goes. So Lorna Slater takes no responsibility for the collapse of the deposit return scheme and the loss of £9 million to the taxpayer at least, plus all the millions that are going to be paid out once these guys go to court, because of course they're going to, and they're going to sue the government because of this woman, her stupidity and her inability basically to do her job. The Scottish Green Minister blamed the UK government for the collapse of the recycling initiative, which resulted in the loss of dozens of jobs plus £9 million of taxpayer cash. In fact, it wasn't the government, the UK government, that actually cancelled it. It was her decision. But of course it had to be cancelled because during the planning phase, she got so many things very, very wrong. And that was just based on the things she did do. The other things she didn't do were things like talk to people or understand the concepts or even some basic paperwork. She was a lazy, stupid Canadian bint, and that is why, of course, it has failed. Lorna Slater claimed that she was not at fault for all of the collapse, or not at fault at all, for the collapse of the deposit return scheme in Scotland, and with it the potential loss of £9 million of taxpayers' cash, plus, as I say, possibly up to 100 million more. The recycling initiative was delayed by the Scottish Government in June after a row with Westminster. The row being that Westminster knew what they were doing and she didn't. At the time, both the Scottish Greens Minister and Humza Yousaf blamed the pause on the UK government because they couldn't blame their own inadequacies, demanding that glass be left out of the project, even though everybody who's an expert in the field said that this would be okay. But the trouble is, the people running it weren't experts in the field. They weren't experts at anything whatsoever, except fucking up repeatedly. Both of them have done that a lot, haven't they? Miss Slater backtracked on this during a Holyrood committee meeting. She also refused to take any responsibility for the collapse of the scheme, which led to the administrator, Circularity Scotland, plunging into administration, even though that was her personal decision. She was told, don't do it, it will work. And she went ahead and collapsed it. Her personal decision. Nobody forced that on her. Scottish government-owned bank, Scottish National Investment Bank, also loaned the business £9 million, which this is unlikely to be recouped. And that's just the £9 million from there. You've got to think the costs across the whole of government, way, way more than £9 million. Plus, as I say, what's going to come out of the courts when these guys sue them? The Circular Economy Minister fielded questions from MSPs at today's Net Zero Committee, where she laid the entire blame for the initiative not working at Westminster's door, of which, of course, nobody believed her because she's a known and proven liar. This is despite her facing a vote of no confidence at Holyrood due to her shambolic handling of it, her shambolic handling of everything. She's just a shambles, isn't she? Scottish Tory Net Zero spokesman Douglas Lumsden asked her about why the scheme could not go ahead without glass, as Circularity Scotland suggested. And she said it is absolutely possible to run schemes without glass in them. There you go then. She's admitting it. She said that was not the reason why we had to halt Scotland's scheme. Well, that was the reason you said you were halting it. So you're either lying now or you're lying then. At what point would you like us to believe that you were and weren't lying, Lorna? Lorna the liar. She said it was the changing of the rules, particularly around the labelling and the deposit level. Whoa, let's talk about the deposit level in a second. We would then be unable to say to Scottish businesses, this is what the scheme is going to look like. And that level of the deposit is core to how the scheme operates because it's tied into the business model of how the scheme is funded and works. She's blaming that on the British government. But let's just get back to what actually happened. You know, the truth. And the truth is that a Scottish shopkeeper went to the courts and said to them, can we have a review on this? And the court came back and said yes. Because what the Scottish government wanted to do is say flat fee across everyone for this fee for handling charges. And this one guy, which I covered in videos past, said, no, that's not right because different people will have different amounts of levels, they'll have different size shops, they have different costs, different easements. And the court said, no, you're quite right. And every single vendor had to be individually assessed. How many tens, if not hundreds of thousands of shops up and down the whole of Scotland would require inspectors to go in and do individual assessments and make an arrangement and an agreement with the shop owner that this would be the level that these things would cost at? Well, this didn't happen, did it, Lorna? Because you got it wrong. You said, oh, we'll just do this like this because you are an idiot. And the court said no. So let's not blame that entirely on Westminster, the government of Westminster. Indeed, let's not blame that at all on the Westminster government. Let's blame that on the one person who should have known had she done her homework and had she taken legal advice. That person, of course, is Lorna Slater. But then, of course, how would she know? She didn't speak to anyone in the recycling business. They kept trying to set up meetings. 3 times they wanted meetings with her. 3 times she said no, because Lorna Slater knows more about everything than anyone else ever, because she is the wisest and cleverest person in the world. She is the other thing, actually. She's not that at all, is she? That's right. She's a fuckwit. Anyway, the recycling initiative is not expected to go ahead until autumn 2025 at the earliest, without glass. But this could be delayed further depending on the UK government. In fact, it's now looking, as I said the other day in a video before, it's now looking like it's going to be 2027. Meanwhile, all these people who've actually paid out money and to make investments are going to be suing for damages because, they're going to, aren't they? Miss Slater claimed that she had listened to businesses. Lies. She didn't listen to anyone who told her that they could not go ahead with the project due to the extra red tape and that she had tried hard to make it work. No, you didn't try hard at all. You didn't even do your homework. And she tried to avoid the loss of money and jobs. Well, letting the scheme go ahead would have avoided that, but you decided to cancel it. She said there was no way to go ahead with it, apart from everyone telling her, yes, there was, due to the conditions imposed on us. The conditions caused by your not being able to do the job properly. Mr. Lumsden asked if she took any responsibility for the £9 million of taxpayers' cash, which will be lost. She said this scheme would have gone ahead in August 23 if the UK government had granted a full exclusion on time. August 23, when you didn't put the paperwork in to the UK government until March 23. You should have put it in back in 2020. Don't blame the UK government, Lorna. You're the one not doing your job. A Scottish Tory MSP pressed her on it, said, so you take no responsibility. It's all to do with the UK government. To which Miss Slater responded, that's correct. you have to ask how this woman has still got a job, don't you? Speaking afterwards, Mr. Lumsden added, "It beggars belief that Lorna Slater is still taking no responsibility for her disastrous deposit return scheme, which cost the Scottish taxpayer £9 million so far. And while other people have lost their jobs and livelihoods as a direct result of her incompetence and obstinate refusal to listen to warnings from businesses, she's still insisting it was all the fault of others, mainly the UK government. Yet both they and Circularity Scotland made it clear that the scheme could have continued without glass. And the real scandal is that she still remains in a job when it was her that pulled the plug on this fatally botched scheme, which we have said time and time again. This woman is not fit to have power. She literally is a moron. She is a room temperature IQ who does not listen to experts, who can be quite blatantly told to her face, this is what you must do, will completely ignore it, and then will blame others when what she was told to do hasn't been done. You must send this into the government. You must send this form into the government. Lorna, have you sent that form into the government? For 3 years, she did not. She would not speak to experts because she knew what the experts would tell her, and she didn't want to hear it because as long as she didn't officially hear it, then she hadn't heard it and didn't know. If she'd had the meeting and the experts had said, no, you mustn't do this, it would have changed her plans and made her look as though she'd got something wrong, which is quite incapable of accepting. And there she is. And now everybody knows it's fine. Everybody knows, Lorna, you are a complete imbecile. I'm coming up. Now, of course, her being an imbecile and a fool and an idiot, that's not a surprise to anyone. That's not the news. But the fact that she'll blatantly lie to people in this committee, that's astounding, isn't it? Why is nobody calling her on it and saying, actually, you're lying? They go, I'm not lying. Well, they say, you're not lying now. You were lying then because you said this then. What is it, Lorna? Which one of these is the truth? Which one is true? Were you lying then or were you lying now? Because you can't be true both ways. Even in your warped, tiny, little boggling mind, you can't hold two completely opposite truths. Well, she probably could, because she doesn't even understand the difference, does she? To go through life that stupid must be very, very hard. I mean, life for Lorna, eh? Life for Lorna must be the hardest thing. Because it's hard when you're clever. How much harder must it be for her? Oh well. I'm sure poor old Geoffrey will be out of a job soon and she can bugger off back to Canada and take that other Elena Whitlis with her. The pair of them, the Canadian duo, can go back and sit there and fester in their own stupidity and think, what the hell went wrong? Anyway, I'm finished. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And remember, life is hard when you're dumb. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay the hell out of Geoffrey's way. Idiot. Bye.